Five Nights at Freddy's. What can you say about it? Is it oversaturated? Full of children who probably shouldn't be taking part of it? Full of interesting lore that's hard to figure out because the creator keeps making stuff up? Yes. But it's also an interesting game series. Five Nights at Freddy's was Scott Cawthon's very last game as the final attempt at making video games. Scott tried to make games, but most of them weren't really a huge success, with one criticism sticking out. His characters look unintentionally terrifying. So we took that criticism and made an entire game around it, basing the characters off of Chuck E. Cheese-like animatronics, and it became a juggernaut. Everybody was playing it, watching it, theorizing it, parroting it, everything. But the question is, was it overrated? Did the games ever have any merit? I did mean to answer that question a bit more complete, as this was originally supposed to be a full-on retrospective on every FNAF game. However, I ran out of time and could only do the first 4 games. However, I will be looking at the rest of them over time into 2024, as I'm definitely curious about looking back at the rest of the games. For now, let's take a look at the start of it all. Well, this is where it all started, alright. Five Nights at Freddy's. After seeing a wanted ad for a security guard for the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, you take the job, not knowing the fact that the animatronics do get a bit quirky at night. Or maybe you do know and just really hate yourself. And that's actually it. You sit your ass down and you monitor the cameras. And when I say you sit your ass down, I mean it. There's absolutely nothing you can do besides just sit there and man your cameras. You can't walk around and say hi to the animatronics. You can't go grab yourself a slice of pizza or the smart thing and find the nearest exit before you get stuffed into an animatronic suit. When you get to your slave labor of a job, you're greeted with a phone call playing a message from the guy that worked before you and tells you how you do your job, while saying there's absolutely nothing to worry about the fact that the animatronics move around at night, and a part of the waiver says you're not allowed to sue the company should something happen to you on the job. My corporate overlords are making me feel great already. To break character for a bit, can I just say how nice it feels playing this game again after all this time? Say what you will about the franchise, especially nowadays, whether you think it's oversaturated or not, I don't blame you, I'm not saying you're wrong. But this first game, the simplicity of it, really takes me back. Sure, I didn't really get into the series until around the time FNAF 4 was out, but even then, just basking in the simplicity of this game really brought me back to a simpler time. Well, we'll talk about more to do with that as we get to the modern games in the series. But ignoring everything the franchise has done so far and going back to a time where this was meant to be Scott's last game and the lore wasn't fully set in stone. I mean, Scott totally having the lore put up and definitely not making anything up later. Well, anyway, let's talk about the actual game. Does the game itself hold up and age well? Yeah, I'd say so. Five Nights at Freddy's is so deceivingly simple in its gameplay. When I describe the gameplay, it doesn't sound scary, and really it isn't, but it's scary in a different way. Five Nights at Freddy's is all about staying in one spot and make sure the animatronics don't get to that spot so you don't get jump scared in the face. And I'll admit, me, a grown-ass man, got by these jump scares every now and then. It's not the jump scares themselves that are scary because, well, they aren't. It's everything around them that makes it scary. Because this game is all about paranoia, making things so simple yet so difficult. Believe me, this game may sound easy, but by night 4, nothing matters to these animatronics except having your head in an animatronic suit, because they will absolutely swarm you, setting off noises and bouncing from camera to confuse you and veer you off course. Of course, we're mainly talking about Chica and Bonnie. Foxy and Freddy are a completely different breed. Foxy is stationed in Pirate Cove, hidden behind a curtain, and will run down the hall to your door and hit it by draining your power. The mechanic there is that you need to keep the camera on Pirate Cove so he stays put. Freddy is similar but way more dickish. He heads down the same path as Chica, and once he reaches the office, he never leaves and just sits at the door, meaning you have to always keep the camera on him, and if you don't, then you have to shut the door every time you open the camera, therefore draining your power. And in 420 mode, he is completely sadistic with this mechanic. You want my advice? Ditch Bonnie and Chica and only focus on Foxy and Freddy during night 4 onwards. Use the strategy I'm using on screen here. It may look very spastic, but that's cause it is. Because you have to check the doors to make sure Bonnie and Chica aren't wanting to cave your face in, but you want to keep Foxy and Freddy on their original places as much as you possibly can. And this strategy works out pretty well, barring you don't mess it up, which is very easy to do. And other times, it just relies on good old-fashioned RNG. Because while one playthrough you can implement the strategy and keep Foxy in Pirate Cove for just about the whole night. Other times he'll want to say hi to you by 2 a.m. Freddy can manage to stay on the stage if you keep the strategy up. But if you get distracted too much by Foxy and let Freddy loose, it's dice how fast he'll make it up to your door no matter how much you keep an eye on him by the cameras. And not to mention, it's so hard to see him too. While going through all this, it's possible you'll also encounter hallucinations. The main one I discovered while playing some nights, the screen would flicker "It's me" all over the place. Apparently the animatronics like to employ the seizure mechanic seen in Sonic Colors Ultimate. And another time, I think during night 3, while going through the cameras, the masks and the endoskeleton started staring at me. Ugh. And not to mention all this happening while the phone guy talks to you for about the first hour talking about the bite of 87 and also listening to him dying during night 4. And then if you just happen to f something up, yeah, that happens. And let's not forget what happens if you run out of power, which you will. The power shuts off and then Freddy plays you a little song and could go on for 2 seconds or 50 seconds. And you may think that's annoying, but trust me, when you're knee deep into the night and it's 5 a.m., you're gonna pray and hope for that whole f***ing song so you don't get stuffed. Repeat everything I just said for 7 nights. And yeah, you heard me, 7 nights. Because while the game may be called Five Nights at Lies, the game actually has 2 bonus nights. The 6th night is the hardest, and the 7th night is as hard as you want it to be. Yeah, custom night. And no, I didn't even attempt 420 mode, I couldn't even be bothered. If you're new to this, FNAF, especially classic FNAF, is infamous for its custom nights, which can be so difficult when cranked up to the max. Not even Scott Cawthon knows if it's possible until someone beats it online. If you want to attempt, good luck. The most perfect strategy people came up with is to absolutely ditch all 3 animatronics, focus fully on Foxy, keeping him in Pirate's Cove as much as possible, closing the right door every time you do to keep Freddy out, and even if you do all that correctly by the absolute skin of your f***ing teeth, you then need to pray and hope that A, Foxy doesn't come in at the last second, and B, Freddy plays his lullaby for as long as absolutely possible, as there is no way to beat 420 mode without losing power. So I was just an absolute wuss and put night 7 at 1 and called it a day. Don't care, leave me alone. Now let's get into the deep lore, and as this is the first game and was supposed to be the last, it's pretty tame. For now. So Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. What's up with this place? And why is it so moody? And what's with the place? You see, this place spooks me the most. I asked that twice. Is there a reason these animatronics are trying to kill you? Or is it just game? Well, a part of the hallucinations you'll encounter during gameplay, sometimes you'll see these newspaper clippings on the wall. I actually got them while doing a second playthrough of the game. More on that in a little while. Detailing the closure of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Though we find out this is an older location, not the one we're currently in. The newspaper clippings explain that 5 kids were led into the back room, supposedly by a man dressed up in a suit, and were never seen again, while the parents complained about the suit having a really bad odor of blood and mucus. I wonder what happened to those poor kids. Oh! So, yeah, somehow, some way, someone killed these 4 kids and stuffed their souls into these animatronic suits. But that brings a ton of questions and theories, mainly, why? For what purpose? Also, with all the references to "it's me," do we, the player, have something to do with it? Or are they taking their revenge out on us? Sometimes you'll see hallucinations of a golden Freddy. Is he important or is just an Easter egg? Is he the 5th child from the missing children incident? The game seems to imply that it is important because if you put 1987 into custom night, it jump scares you and crashes the game. Was he a part of the bite of 87? Lots to think about, eh? As far as I know, there's nothing else to talk about. So let's hope for more answers in the sequel, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Which is obviously a sequel. I mean, it has to be. Look, grand reopening because the last one was closed down. And look, in the supply closet, we can even see the withered remains of the animatronics from the previous game. Of course it's a sequel. So let's see who graces my ears.
Hello? Hello, hello?
Is that the same guy? Well, these games were made by one guy, so obviously he just voiced the phone guy again. Doesn't mean it's the same guy, so let's start the game already. We get another newspaper ad for another security guard being needed. Less money! Well, Fredbear's looking like it's getting pretty cheap this game, and it can't be due to this being 1987. 7. No. That doesn't make sense. I'm going crazy. Okay, let's listen to Phone Guy.
They've spent a small fortune on these new animatronics. Facial recognition, advanced mobility. They even let them walk around during the day.
Why does that sound familiar?
They used to be allowed to walk around during the day, too. But then there was the bite of 87. Yeah.
Oh my god, it's a prequel. Wait, so if the amount you get paid links up to 1987, that means we're in the... Oh boy, we're in the room where it happened. But now we have that knowledge. This is probably the most interesting location to be in. While in FNAF 1, it felt like the whole building was going to shut down any minute, the FNAF 2 location is a lot more operational. There's no battery to worry about, and the lights don't go off. Nothing. The building is fully in working order. And while that would mean this place is a lot less scary, I felt a weird sense of dread knowing where I am. The first game paved the way to tell this game's story, and since you know about it before you boot up the game, you know exactly where you are and you know what's going on, creating this uneasiness feeling throughout your entire playthrough. But we'll get into more lore stuff in a bit. Let's talk about the gameplay loop. As I said earlier, there is no power level. You don't have to worry about the building running out of batteries. However, there are no doors for you to close, which means the animatronics can easily walk into your office and cave your face in. To keep track of them, you have to check your vent lights on the right and left side and check the hall with your flashlight. But you gotta do it carefully because you do have a flashlight battery which also depletes, which you use on the cameras. How does that work? But how do you protect yourself? Well, the Freddy higher-ups have equipped you with a Freddy Fazbear head that will make the animatronics think you're one of them and will drive them off. This works on mostly everyone to varying results, which we'll get to later, except for 2 animatronics, Withered Foxy and the Puppet. Withered Foxy will appear in the hall and you'll have to flash him with your light, which for some reason scares him off. But more annoyingly, the Puppet has a music box in his room that you have to keep winding, because if you don't, after a few seconds the music box will deplete and you get... yeah. But I did say earlier that the mask works to varying degrees. What did I mean by that? The withered animatronics, for some reason, the withered animatronics step into your office to say hi instead of saying in the vent like everyone else. When this happens, you have to throw your mask on as fast as possible, and it's a very slight window. The window is so fast yet slow enough to be possible, so you have to be on target. You gotta listen to the sound cues and have an idea where the withered animatronics are so you can throw the mask on, or be like me and just guess and panic. The best thing to do is just throw on the mask as soon as you can get out of the camera. However, if you do the motion too fast before the mask props up, you'll get stuck and won't have enough time to put it on, so be wary of that. I initially got pretty upset at this, thinking it was the game's fault, and I guess there's an argument to be made it is, but I don't necessarily think so. But all this adds up to a very anxious and panicked experience, especially when all this is happening at once. And by the time you get to later nights, you basically just have to hope and pray that something doesn't attack you when you have to wind up the music box, because you know it's running out. But it's those moments of desperation and anxiety that makes this game truly scary. Sure, you can argue this game ain't horror, and to be honest, it kinda ain't, but it's that gameplay loop, that sense of dread throughout the nights that makes those games so terrifying to sit through, yet very addicting. It doesn't help that these are definitely the best animatronics. The toy ones are pretty much whatever, but Balloon Boy, other than being absolutely annoying in the game, has this uncanny smile I don't like. But it's the withered animatronics that are the star of the show. You ever seen an abandoned animatronic? Absolutely nightmare fuel. These are the same thing, with Withered Bonnie being my favorite because he literally has no head and one arm. Terrifying. My favorite picture in this game actually has to do with Withered Chica. Absolutely terrifying, and I will not be sleeping tonight. But now let's talk about that juicy lore. But before we do that, I do want to talk about these mini games you can get throughout your playthrough. Other than random Easter eggs you'll still get, just like in FNAF 1, which I actually got Shadow Bonnie in Night 6. Yes, I'm proud of that. Still waiting to get that purple guy one though. Sometimes when you die, there's a chance you'll get these death mini games that show certain events. Most of them revolving around kids dying and then showing the puppet being involved giving the missing children's incident victims life inside the animatronics. The most notable and the saddest one during these mini games, you'll see a man nicknamed the Purple Guy, who is most likely, if not for sure, behind the missing children's incident, with the most notable one having to do with him driving up in front of the restaurant and killing the child outside. This is assumed to be Purple Guy's first victim, what sets course his action to committing the missing children's incident. And yeah, we get a pretty good idea when that happens too. Starting off, the Phone Guy man tells you there are rumors circulating and tries to ease your mind about it.
Oh hey, before I go, I wanted to ease your mind about any rumors you might have heard lately. You know how these local stories come and go and seldom mean anything. I can personally assure you that whatever is going on out there, however tragic it may be, has nothing to do with our establishment.
It just so happens this is the same night where the rest of the withered animatronics start coming into play, meaning, and this is just my theory anyway, that this is the day where it happened. The withered animatronics are surely the same ones from FNAF 1, that much is clear, and the fact that all except for Foxy are not operational until night 3, the night where Phone Guy tells you about the rumors likely about the missing children's incident. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the day it happened. As the nights go on, the Phone Guy starts to get a lot more nervous about the situation and starts to worry about the place shutting down more and more.
Hey, keep a close eye on things tonight, okay? From what I understand, the building is on lockdown.
Until night 6, where for some reason, you're still here on a shift, and the Phone Guy explained, yep, it happened.
Hello? What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
And the building is on lockdown, and then closes in the next newspaper clipping. It's a dreadful thing to sit through, honestly. In a good way. You know exactly what all happens, and you just feel all the tension and feeling in the air, which in my opinion definitely makes this one of the best FNAF games in the series, at the very least story-wise. So now that we played one of the best FNAF games, let's play probably the worst one. Yeah, so I probably jumped the gun a bit there, but yeah, FNAF 3 is probably the worst FNAF game. But who knows? Other games may take that title. There's always room for a breach! By the way, if you see my face in the top left-hand corner, I just thought about doing that since I had to play the game twice. You'll see in a second, and I thought it'd look a little bit more exciting, I guess. It's so annoying too, because it has a lot of potential to actually be the best one. And in a lot of ways, it kinda is. But first, let's start from the top. And we're going to cover a lot of lore first before we cover the game. You'll see why in a minute. We are no longer at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, as the establishment has completely shut down. We are now at Fazbear Frights, an amusement park attraction based on the rumors and stories of the previous establishment. The place hasn't officially opened just yet, and there's not much to begin with. Even night 1 has literally nothing. We'll get to that later. Until they find one. A real one. Springtrap. But something seems awfully weird about him. Anyways, during your night, Phone Guy, a new one and not an old one, plays some audio tapes. Something to do with spring lock suits. Animatronics that you can actually put on and wear, which means a human can be inside one. And during night 3, he describes the spring locks as pretty fragile and can kill you even if you get them wet or just breathe on them weird. But then the very next night, he suddenly tells us that corporate policy has changed and you're not allowed to wear the suits under any circumstances and are dangerous.
There's been a slight change of company policy concerning use of the suit. Don't. After learning of an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous spring lock failures, the company has deemed the suit temporarily unfit for employees.
But why? What happened? Why so suddenly? Did something happen? Maybe. Because later on, he tells us about the animatronic spring body has been noticeably moved.
Management has also been made aware that the spring body animatronic has been noticeably moved and would like to remind employees that this costume is not safe to wear under any circumstances.
Spring Bonnie? Well, actually, now that you mention it, Spring Boy kind of looks like Bonnie, and after all, Bonnie is the only rabbit animatronic, so it would make sense that this could be a version of Bonnie. Wait a second. Are those... Nah, I'm tripping. Actually, I have an idea. Why don't we look at some promotional material for Springtrap before the game came out? Yeah, remember these? Scott used to have a website he would constantly update. You know, before the cancellation, with new teasers and posters for the new FNAF game coming out, some including these up-close renders of Spring... Oh! But why would someone wear one of the...
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
Oh! So the only animatronic that's in the establishment is Purple Guy, who I guess is trapped in the suit as a rotting corpse. That, I won't lie, that's terrifying. And you know, It's strange. For being the only human that you fight in the FNAF series, it's just a shame that he's so f***ing stupid. Okay, let's get into the gameplay loop now, and I already have some complaints. First of all, why does nothing happen on night 1? You can say it's to help players get acquainted, but this is Five Nights at Freddy's 3. We know what's going on. And even if this is someone's first FNAF game, what stopped this from happening in FNAF 1 or 2? Either way, night 2 is where things actually happen. So how do you stop Springtrap from coming in your office and asking if you have games on your phone? Okay, I'm sorry, I have to rant about this jump scare. This jump scare is awful. Don't get me wrong, the FNAF games didn't have amazing jump scares, but they were effective ones. My favorite being Foxy from FNAF 2, and he even has a great one in this game. But here, Springtrap just steps close to you and smiles in your face, and it hangs on for far too long. And what's weird about it is that if he jump scares you on the right side of the office, it's actually animated and looks a lot better. What is this about? Okay, sorry, how do you stop this from happening so you don't have to see it? Well, you gotta check the cameras and keep Spring Boy lured away from your office using the audio lures. However, in some of the rooms, there are vents where Springtrap can use it as a shortcut on your way to your office. Don't make the joke. So you have to be anticipating his movements and be ready to seal the vent if necessary. There are, of course, methods of keeping you out of the cameras, otherwise you would just be luring him out the entire game. There are two ways this is done. Since the building is unstable, sometimes the building systems will go completely offline and you have to reboot them, which can take a few seconds, giving Spring Boy time to move. The other method is the phantom animatronics, which will give you a ventilation error and will force you to reboot. Now admittedly, this method is pretty cool because you can avoid the jump scares if you get out of your camera on time or switch to another camera. This works for Balloon Boy, Mangle, Puppet, and Chica. Freddy, you just have to not stare at him for too long, and I just love his animation where he just walks down the hall.
Hey kid, why do you moan? We couldn't help but notice that you're all alone.
And Foxy, as usual, is just a straight up dick because he'll just stand in your office and jump scare you when you look at your maintenance panel. By the way, can I just say, how is it that these not fatal animatronics have better jump scares than the actual fatal one? You know it's bad when Balloon Boy has a better jump scare than you. Even the Puppet is scarier, even if he just pops up and asks you if you have games in your Kindle Fire, which is a lot scarier than phones. But even with these handicaps, I managed to almost beat this game 5 nights in a row. And you're probably saying, I must have used some advanced technique that only the true FNAF gamers know about. Oh yeah, believe me, it's such an advanced technique. You know what I did? I kept catching Spring Boy in a loop in Cam 10 where I kept playing the audio lure and keeping the vent sealed, so every time he would try to do it, he would just get stuck, giving me time to reboot my audio and repeat the process, because usually he'd just get stuck in the vent again. That's the reason why this game is so easy, is because Springtrap is an actual moron, making the gameplay suffer in the process. It's just a shame because there is a lot to love about FNAF 3. The atmosphere, the tension, and even the visuals are some of the best yet. The other games were about being in a pizzeria, which is supposed to look somewhat happy. But here you're in a horror attraction, so instead of fun colors, you have dark green, gross atmosphere, which makes it stand out. But it's the gameplay that just doesn't stack up. It's not as addicting like the other games, it's just a flat out joke. Not to mention that Nightmare Mode is completely stupid, because while the game feels too easy, Nightmare Mode feels cheap, and Springtrap cheats his way onto many locations because he can just dart around the establishment. I even tried changing my strategy, but nothing worked. It's a total joke, and I'm not laughing! I just gave up. It's not worth my time. I really wanted to like FNAF 3. I really did, and once upon a time I actually thought it was the best FNAF game. But that was when I just watched these games and not actually experienced them for myself. Now there is one saving grace to this game. It isn't much, but it's something. Because while you can play the game and just survive all nights then unlock Nightmare Mode, you have more of an objective this time. During the night, you will get these segments where you play as the animatronics in a layout that should feel familiar. You walk by one of the rooms and you realize, yeah, this is the FNAF 1 location. You play these sections as the 4 original animatronics, and Shadow Freddy guides you towards a back room where Purple Guy dismantles all of the animatronics one by one. However, in one of the nights, or if you wander about, you'll find these corridors that has a lot of clues, including but not limited to a set of numbers that you can put into a wall. 395248? Well, the only real numbers that matter to Scott Cawthon is $7,000. These lead towards the mini games you can play, and story-wise, they are releasing these animatronic souls. You start as Balloon Boy in night 1 or 2 to grab the balloon. Then you play as Mangle to get the cake. Then you play as Chica in night 3, an animatronic called Fredbear, IDK if that's confirmed in this game or not, and then Shadow Bonnie of all things. Your goal is to find the crying children and give them cake, which will set them free. That's right, kids, cake is actually good for you. Scott Cawthon said so. It's merely symbolic. The kids are being set free and are being at peace with themselves with the Happiest Day minigame, with the puppets setting the original 5 free, giving the original animatronics and the story of Five Nights at Freddy's an ending, as Fazbear Frights burns to the ground. And I am sure that this will be the only ending to this series. But before they get set free, the kids trap Purple Guy in the back room. He flees into the Spring Bonnie suit, but the water and moisture trigger the spring locks, trapping Purple Guy as a rotting corpse. And the Fazbear staff steal the room off, so Purple Guy would never be seen again. A terrifying story, but a really cool one at that. But it does not save the rest of the game. FNAF 3 has things I like about it, but a lot of things to hate as well. And believe me, I wish I could like it more, but I don't. Well, now that that's done, it's time to play FNAF Sister Location. Yep, just jump straight from FNAF 3 to Sister Location. No FNAF 4. Alright, let's go. So we start in an elevator, going to an underground bunker, and we listen to the... You're not gonna let me skip it, are you? Alright, I, a 22-year-old man, am terrified of FNAF 4. This is one of the only FNAF games I haven't completed. Why is that, you may ask? Because I get terrified when I just boot up the game. Okay, introductions first. Let's introduce the story first, and then we'll get back to the gameplay. Okay, sounds good. Okay. So FNAF 4 follows the crying child, the original death that sparked all these games. It seems like he's having trouble at home, mainly with his brother with no father or mother in sight. There does seem to be a sister though, as she has a bedroom, and it seems like the kid is scared of Freddy Fazbear, Fredbear's family diner most likely. Gee, I wonder why. There's things about it though. The voice in your head, or really the bear that talks to you, he's here, he's there, he's everywhere. Who are you gonna call? Psychic friend Fredbear. But when he talks to the child about, don't you remember what you saw? So clearly, this kid has seen some shit and is now scared of the pizzeria, and now tormented with the nightmare of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Though, if that's the case, why does he still consider these plushies his friends though? If he's scared of these characters, shouldn't he not like the plushies too? Cause let me tell you, if I was scared of Chuck E. Cheese and I had a plush of him, I'd burn that shit immediately. Well, I've stalled long enough. It's time to get into the gameplay loop of FNAF 4, which is a lot different than the past games. You're in a child's bedroom, which means no cameras. Yeah, first in FNAF 2 and 3, they got rid of doors, and now you have doors but no cameras. Scott just can't with both, apparently. So your objective this time is to go up to the doors and check the hallway to keep your friends from popping and saying hi, aka murdering you. Yeah, it's just plain murder this time, because if you get jump scared, blood goes over the screen. In the other games, it's just static, implying death, but this time it's just straight up, we are murdering this kid. Okay, so before we continue on with the gameplay, let's talk about the designs a little bit. Honestly, in-game, they look great. Since they look like child nightmares, they look terrifying in the dark. Not to mention, when you see them down the hall, you don't get much detail, so only the big things stick, mainly their teeth. And with the jump scare, you only see them for a second, so you barely see much of them, which work very well for their designs. When you see them in their renders, though, Yeah, they look kind of goofy. Also, I don't know if my computer is slowly degrading from all the bad games I play and rendering and editing of sub bad games, but this game seems to freeze a lot. It's almost like I'm emulating the game. I really doubt it's my PC, as all the other FNAF games ran perfectly fine, and these games are a collection of JPEGs. I'm sure my computer can run it fine. I don't know. Okay, well, what is this collection of JPEGs? Well, the gameplay loop is checking the doors to make sure Chica and Bonnie don't enter the room. To do that, you have to run up to the door, then either shine your light or shut the door if you hear breathing. Also on your radar is Freddy, who's behind you on your bed with little trying to form a hive mind. Then night 2 rolls around, and guess who's back? Foxy starts off back in the back house, partying with Bonnie and Chica, and then starts to make his move. He will try to get into the closet, and you can stall him for as long as you can by shining your light down the hall and scare him off, just like Bonnie and Chica. However, if he's on the right side of the hall and you are on the left side of the hall, he makes a break for the closet and gets right in. So now you have to run up to the closet and close it shut, where he will decrease into certain stages, with the important one being where he's back into a plushie. Oh, and by the way, this probably means he's dreaming of his plushies. But don't forget, they're his friends. He loves these guys. Ah! Okay, so why is this game so terrifying to me? Why do I have a fear of this game? Well, it's a simple, really. FNAF is all about sight. Keeping an eye on things and checking to see where things are to stay ahead of everything where you can. However, FNAF 4 revolves completely and fully around sound, which is far more terrifying. Sight is assuring. If you see Bonnie in the vent, you know it's him. You can see it coming and try to avoid it, or if not, you know it's about to happen. But hearing plays tricks on you. When I walk up to a door, in my head, I know there is a 1 in 10 chance that an animatronic is going to be at the door, and the only hint is listening for breathing, which sometimes is very easy to hear. And by the way, I don't like being breathed on, that's terrifying, but other times, the breathing can be so soft and delicate, it's like they're pressing B to blow. You hear so much walking, running, breathing, dog bark in the background, Chica in the kitchen, and on a related note, have I mentioned I'm afraid of the dark? It plays with you. It's so smart the way it's executed, the fact you have to worry about so much and have to listen with such accuracy and be on top of everything. It messes with your paranoia, and it's a dreadful experience. That's the word I'm looking for. Dread. Every time I walk up to one of these damn doors and listen, I have the biggest amount of dread throwing through my body. The dread of fear. The dread I'm about to mess up, and then it happens. You mess up, and since you're so dialed into listening, the most small thing, that loud jump scare sound effect happens, and it catches you every single time. You can roll your eyes at me all you want, and honestly, it's probably warranted how much I'm whining about how spooky this game is about animatronics. Well, I'm sorry that I have fears, okay? Yeah, the game is simple, but that's what's so deceivingly scary about it. You can do it, you can beat it, you can play this game, you can survive, but the fear is that you're gonna mess it up because you're not sure if you've waited long enough, or if you've actually heard breathing, or was it just a footstep? It's invigorating, yet so dreadful. Now who's that? Okay, it's time to get critical here. Fredbear. Fredbear shows his face in Night 5 and acts entirely different from the rest of the animatronics. And by the way, he has nothing to do with Golden Freddy, yet he looks like Golden Freddy. Great job there, Scotty. But he plays different from the rest of them. First of all, he's the only animatronic. Thank God, right? No, because unlike Bonnie and Chica, who will stop at the door and will let you hear breathing, Fredbear will barrel through your door as soon as possible. To stop him, you have to switch from door to door, listening to his footsteps to see if you can pin down where he is. And if you don't, you hear this sound. Meaning you screwed up. So it's just a rat race where you have to switch from door to door as fast as you can and shut the door the minute you see him. And don't hang on for too long, by the way. Now see, this is okay and all, but the problem is that this is just brought onto you. There's no hint that there's another animatronic on the loose, but much less that he plays differently. That is bad game design. It took Markiplier so long to figure out how to get it to work, and I don't blame him. Throwing a completely new mechanic into a game without hinting how it works for the player is completely bold. That being said, I beat it on my first try. Yeah, I don't know if I got extremely lucky or something, but I somehow managed to beat Fredbear's Night 5 on my first try. And it even tried to screw me over because I got him out of the hall and then he wound up in my room right afterwards. But even then, I was able to beat it. What are the odds? Feel so confident right now, I'ma quit playing this game. Yeah, I can't. I can't beat Night 6. I only gave it a few tries, but I can't do it. You think I'm scared of this game for 5 nights? You think I can handle 6 through 8? Night 6 is really, really hard, meaning you have to do everything much faster and with more accuracy. And I can't handle that amount of pressure. I've got enough going on in my life. I shouldn't have to worry about some crybaby. No offense. And by the way, you heard that right. 8 nights, because you have night 6, then night 7 introducing Nightmare, which is just a harder version of Fredbear because he keeps gaslighting you because he does a fake laugh that makes you think he's in the room, but he's not. And then 2020 mode. No! I am capping it here. I've done my bidding, tried my best, and I can't do it anymore. Call me a wuss. I don't care. And besides, I'll make it up to you with the Halloween DLC. So FNAF 4 was released in July of 2015, with it getting Halloween DLC later that year in October 2015, which doesn't really change that much. It's just new designs for the animatronics, which in my opinion look goofier than the OG designs. Balloon Boy takes place of Plush Trap and looks stupid. The most interesting changes are Foxy is changed to Mangle, and while you're playing the game, if Mangle gets into your closet, her gears will grind, which will cover up the noises, making it even harder. The most interesting change, though, is Nightmarion, which honestly looks terrifying. This Halloween DLC is not canon. Except for Balloon Boy, apparently? Okay. Speaking of canonicity, let's wrap up the story. So the crying child is scared of Fredbear's family diner, and his brother keeps torturing him by scaring him with the Foxy mask. The fact he's scared of that, but not of this psychic friend Fredbear head that shows up everywhere, is beyond me. Either way, the game starts counting down to a party, which seems to be at Fredbear's family diner. But this is not the party that was set in FNAF 2. I mean, why would you ever assume that? I mean, it's not like this is the only party ever mentioned in the series with such importance, and therefore you would think that Scott Cawthon would never make a mistake like that. No. The birthday party in FNAF 2 is completely unrelated. This party has Crying Child lifted up by his brother and friends, shoved up into the animatronic's mouth. Now, your reaction would be,
was that the bite of 87?
Well, no, this bite is not the bite of 87. This is a completely different bite. Why would you think that? It's not like this is the only bite ever mentioned in the series with such importance, and therefore you would... Yeah, so we'll jump ahead here. This wasn't outright confirmed until the next game, but I'll just bite the bullet. This bite is not the fabled bite of 87 mentioned in FNAF 1, which seems so important. No, this is a completely different bite that happened. That's completely unrelated, but has just as much or more importance because it set in motion everything that happens in the series. Again, what would make you think otherwise? The fact the year this game takes place in is not established? Oh, pish posh. Yeah, I'm sorry. This game is where Scott's storytelling starts to fall just a tad bit and starts to make you think things that aren't true. Was Fredbear's family diner the FNAF 2 location because this is the bite of 87? Are you stupid? Almost as stupid as you thinking that all of the FNAF games we've been playing so far have been nothing but a dream inside this kid's head. That's hilarious. This game implies everything has been a dream inside this kid's head. Ladies and gentlemen, the scariest thing that happened to the FNAF fandom. Dream theory, implying that all of the FNAF games have just been dreams and nightmares from a kid who's in a coma. But that's insane. Surely there's no proof. Sometimes while you're playing the game, you'll see one of 3 Easter eggs: a bottle of pills, a vase of flowers, and an ivory drip implying this kid is in the hospital. In the night 3 minigame cutscene, you'll see this girl with a group of toys, and one of them has a Chica with her beak off, just like how it is in FNAF 2. The phone and fan from each game are both present in the child's bedroom. That fact that someone would work at Freddy Fazbear's for over 5 nights willingly is kind of stupid. The girl tells you that the animatronic stuff you into the suit parallels in FNAF 1. Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie could be the shadows of String Bonnie and Fredbear up on the stage. And all 3 games end in a grandfather clock, which is at the end of the hall in his house. There are unquestionable legs for this theory to stand on. But what do I guess? It's dumb. Yeah, sure, it explains a lot, but it's so underwhelming. Why craft such an interesting lore and mystery around a child's nightmare? It's really, really dumb. I have no idea whether this theory is true, but to be honest, with evidence laid here, it makes total sense. And don't get me wrong, I would love to go back and disprove this in retrospect, but it makes sense seeing the game around this time, seeing as how this was supposed to be the final chapter, and thankfully Scott didn't do anything else to piss off the fanbase. No, I'm drawing the line here. Well, I would have, but since this video isn't about every FNAF game, I guess I have a FNAF World is next. Goodbye.
It's what we're made to do.